The Politics program brought to you as always by everybody who supports us at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you go to our Patreon. If you're not a Patreon member now, if you don't know why by now, if you don't know why. Well, I mean, come on. We just had the Mueller report. This was a great time to have the bonus episodes. In fact, I released an episode, an emergency episode, on Monday. Then I did another bonus one just for the $3 club. I did a bonus one with all the stuff that wasn't Mueller related, so everybody still got them takes. You can support independent political analysis. The man who isn't trying to gaslight you. Alone, I stand, and I accept your gratitude at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. My voice assistant is yelling at me. That probably means that it's time to stop talking about how we support the show and probably just get around to doing the damn thing. Politics. Ladies and gentlemen. We're free. And lo, in the starless night, when I looked into the heavens and thought I found no God, I never thought this day would come. A day where I can look out into the future and instead of seeing the grim blanket labeled Mueller report, a legacy of the past, a cage for our minds, I could instead see nothing but the future. Yes. An uncomplicated, unchangeable, static future. I'm so glad that the Mueller report is over. Oh, my God. Now, that's not to say that there's not going to be elements of it kicking around, for a little bit, right? Doesn't matter that there's still going to be truthers out there that want to make sure that it's still the same thing that it could be, but I'm telling you now, and I will tell you again, what it was supposed to be, what it could have been, is done. Now, I will get into exactly how over it is. But before we do, I want to start things off. I'm just getting things begun with my final scorecard of winners and losers based on what happened over the last week. You guys have no idea how annoying it was to follow this story. This story was so annoying. So annoying. Well, I'll start with our first loser. Here's our first loser. All of the media. All of the media. Want to know why the media? And you guys know how much I hate the media. There is no the media. There are many different outlets, and many of them hate each other, and many of them they're all competing with each other. There is no hive mind for the media. Now, oftentimes there can be like a school of fish, a trend in which lazy media follows instead of doing work for themselves and breaking new ground, but that's not everybody, and it's unfair to paint the media with a broad brush. And yet I am saying that the media is a loser past Friday, and here's why. Not because this was a story that they got wrong, but because they don't have the Mueller report to report on anymore. You have to understand what an amazing story the Mueller report is. It was an amazing story. I hated it because it doesn't give me anything that I want. I want certainty. I want to know a poll came out. I want to know someone's running. I want to know whether or not they've raised a bunch of money, because these are the only things that I need to see whether or not someone's doing well, someone's doing poorly. But the Mueller report, for the rest of the political media and the news media in general, represented something extraordinary. There was a mystery box. And within that mystery box, anything was possible. Donald Trump getting hauled out of the office of the presidency in handcuffs. Possible. A greater climactic struggle between Donald Trump and the Department of Justice. Quite possible. The arrest of a son of a sitting president. Possible. A new world war. Possible. All of it sat in a mystery box for years. How do you report on a mystery box? However you want. Literally, anyone who says anything, you can say, well, it might be in there. It may or may not be in that mystery box. We could have the key to understanding what is there if only we could open it. Well, we couldn't. So the media loses. Because any story wherein the unsaid predicate is all possibilities, like literally, to understand how important the Mueller report story was in terms of everybody's world, say the president is, like, let's take whether or not the Donald Trump was going to sit down for an interview, right? Will the president sit down for an interview? The opposite side of that, the unsaid predicate, is as expansive as Doctor Strange, doing his head twitching thing where he's looking through every possibility in the universe and finding only one where they defeat Thanos. Like, that's how many possibilities were possible because of the Mueller report. And now you lose that. And if you're the media, there's no way you get those ratings back. There's just no substitute for the Mueller report. It was a defining story of a decade. I doubt that there'll be anything that comes after this that singularly is able to carry the kind of interest that the Mueller report was able to. So they're a loser. It's also a hard story to cover, and I didn't like covering it. It was because every outlandish thing that you would say is, sure, maybe. And that's what we lost. What we lost is the sure maybe. Because now at least we have some outer boundaries. We have some definitions. I'll get to that in a second. Here's another loser, Adam Schiff. Whoa, baby. Oh, baby. Adam played his hand. Adam Schiff is one of those dudes who thought that Beanie Babies were going to be hot in the 90s and then went to every McDonald's to pick up every Beanie Baby. And then found out that they never really increased in value, and now he's just sitting on a shit ton of Beanie Babies. And you look at him and you're like, well, I mean, it made sense at the time. You definitely, I guess it really was, it looked like they were going to be really valuable. They were going for a lot of money. And now you just have a lot of Beanie Babies. I guess you could just sell 10 for $5 on eBay. That was Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff pushed this collusion thing hard. And he's still going to be out there doing the hearings, and he is somebody that is going to latch on to any little morsel that we find in the actually released Mueller report. But he got dunked on pretty hard. He was called on to resign by Kellyanne Conway. He's going to have to take his turn in the barrel. Let's get to a winner. Don Jr. No lie, friends. No lie. I thought Don Jr. was toast. I thought Don Jr. was toast. Anytime that you send an email like, oh, we would love to hear, and then you sit down with them, you sit down with somebody, with a Russian, bad judgment. I think at its most charitable, you could say, homie, I think you probably wish you had that one back. Steve Bannon made fun of him in the Fire and Fury book. Said that that was one of the dumbest things you could possibly do. I agree. So Don Jr., a winner is you. You're not indicted. You're not going to jail. Now you can just shit post on Twitter until your heart's content. Responding now to the chat, BS Tran says Kellyanne Conway is a hack. And she's certainly a flack. She's somebody that is a shilling for her team. But how bad is it when she's dunking on you? Think about that one. Here's another loser. Robert Mueller himself. Here's why Robert Mueller is a loser in this case. And there's really not much he could have done about it. Robert Mueller represented all possibilities to all people. And now he's out of power. Because as we've learned on this show, time and time again, there is no power in politics but future power. Not the power you have, and certainly not the power in the past. Nobody gives a shit. All power is future power. So you saw it on Friday. As soon as the word got out that there were no future indictments and no sealed indictments, it went from Santa Mueller, I love you so much, you're my best friend. Like, oh, I'm going to name my dog Robert Mueller. Somebody come here right now. I'm going to get a Mueller tattoo. Yeah! To why the fuck didn't you interview him? Like, that was it. There was one line. You want to know why? You want to know what the difference was between my dog? Now that dog's named Steve, by the way. It went from Robert Mueller the dog to Steve the dog. And here's why. Because in his hands, he had the mystery box. And so it didn't matter what was likely. It didn't matter what was possible. The only limitations of what was in that mystery box lied between the ears of everybody who wanted to talk about it. And if your dreams were sugar plum fairies and a frog march out of the White House for Donald Trump, then you loved Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller was your best friend. He was your new bicycle. And so it didn't matter whether or not that came true. Because once he was done, unless he did exactly what everybody wanted, which is impossible since everybody wants something different, he was going to lose power. Because as of Friday, he was out of future power. Here's another loser. Lonely James Comey. Hey there, lonely boy. Walking through the woods, asking questions to himself. So many questions, James Comey tweeted. So many questions. Oh! if Donald Trump does not go down for obstruction, and I'm going to get into why I don't think that's likely, then he's just a dude who was fired. Fired from his dream job. I don't know how much more we're going to talk about James Comey, so I'm just going to get that last one out there right now. Look, he has no more plays. He came out. He released a book. He took his shots at Donald Trump. It would have looked a lot better if Donald Trump had gone down. He didn't go down. That's it. Now, whether or not he gets called before Congress, who cares? He's done. Here's a winner. We're going to end with winners. Winner, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is a winner here. Big winner. She just showed all those insurgent freshman House Democrats, this is why you listen to me, kid. Now you were all out there half-cocked talking about how there's collusion and we're going to get him out of the White House and we're pushing for impeachment. And what did Nancy Pelosi do? She came out with her wooden spoon and said, we're not going to push for impeachment. Now, maybe she knew something. You never know how these circles work in D.C. Nancy Pelosi is somebody that's got a lot of connections. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't. If she knew, then it was smart that she put on the brakes. If she didn't, she's even smarter because she put her team more in a position to win by saying we're not going to do it unless the facts merit it. And instead of playing into the hysteria, she took a step back. Now she would have looked more impartial and fair if the mystery box had opened and it said Donald Trump had a direct line to the Kremlin. But the fact that she throttled it back made her look better than many others on her team. But friends, there's only one big winner as of Sunday afternoon. And that is the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. For 2 years, there has been a cloud over his administration. And that was, again, the mystery box of possibilities. That he could be a foreign agent. He could be a cultivated asset. Oh, but whither the yacht reports of the oligarchs? What about the oligarchs? Now, I'm not saying that his presidency isn't tainted. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. In fact, God damn, am I excited to get back to people hating Donald Trump for things that we can at least tangibly understand. I'm so pumped that he went after Obamacare this week because now we can get back to things we know. Donald Trump hates Obamacare. The Department of Justice has now backed a legal precedent that could kill Obamacare. Obamacare people versus anti-Obamacare people. Fight! Love it. Love it. But he's a winner because he was not indicted. No one around him was indicted. No American was indicted for collusion. Now look. Robert Mueller is a career lawman. Anytime that somebody like him is put out on the case and that amount of money is spent, people are going to jail. Robert Mueller does not spend that amount of money without every step of the way making sure that everybody is squeaky clean. And guess what? Many, many, many people are not squeaky clean. And those that are not are going to jail. But nobody was indicted for collusion. No American was indicted for collusion. A bunch of Russians that'll never see America were indicted for collusion. That's huge. And also, Donald Trump effectively now has the ability to turn the page. Now, here's where I'm going to answer a lot of your questions. Because I'm seeing it right here in the chat room that, don't you want to see the report? The report's not out. Pay attention to the report. Why are we jumping the gun here? Now, the news was in the indictments, in my opinion. And assuming Barr isn't completing total fraud by saying that Mueller found no collusion in his report on Sunday, then it will be very hard to prove corrupt intent, which is the key to obstruction of justice. Friends, what we're talking about here is not a parking ticket. This isn't a financial crime. This is not normal. The idea that you could levy obstruction of justice charges against a sitting president should not be taken lightly. To sideline a president is to sideline somebody that, slightly less than half, don't email me, half the country decided wanted to run the country in a very contentious election. This is not a precedent that anybody wants to set. Trust me. Think what you will about Trump, but the bar should be very, very, very high for obstruction of justice, in my opinion. It is best for our nation if it is very, very, very high. If there is debatable evidence, as is suggested by Attorney General Barr, then I don't think that it rises to that level. Remember that Nixon resigned not because he agreed with the charges, but because his support eroded. As long as Donald Trump's support is still there, that the American people still believe that he is being unfairly targeted, and this is another thing. Watergate happened. Richard Nixon was trying to protect this thing. If Mueller found no collusion, then proving corrupt intent is just much harder. It will always be more complicated. So that's why I say, sure, of course, there's going to be things of political consequence that come out of the Mueller report. I do believe that. But as for what we had known, that 2-year investigation, it ended Sunday, at least in terms of political consequence. Now, here's my unsolicited recommendation to the Democrats. They need to stop waiting for Godot. There is no magic box anymore. And there's nothing that fixes losing an election to the most unlikable candidate in American history. Trump's going after Obamacare again. That's a winning issue for the Democrats. We're in an election season. That's a great time to rally your base. At the end of the day, as was said best on Twitter, the real Mueller report were the friends we made along the way. Folks, you can go ahead and get my free political newsletter at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. That is 5 days a week, 5 stories a day, mostly gifts and some hot takes. I've had a great time with it lately. And thank you to the PX3 faithful, the free political newsletter faithful, who have done their duty against the villainous Al Doritos. Yes, Al Doritos, for those of you who have not listened in a few weeks, is what somebody's autocorrect accidentally spelled instead of algorithms. So we now fight day in and day out against Al Doritos because they like to put the free political newsletter in the promotions tab of your email, in the updates tab of your email. reply to me. Whenever you get the free political newsletter, reply to me, and I will then reply to you back, and we will prove to Al Doritos that this is not some scammy circular. This isn't some hot deal, 20% off BS. No, no, no. This is a functional communication between willing parties. So freepoliticalnewsletter.com. Go there now. Sign up. When you get your first free political newsletter, just reply to me with whatever you want. You got an opinion? Cool. Because we've been doing more feedback in the newsletter, which I've really, really, really enjoyed. All right. Now, let's get to some stuff looking forward. Finally. Jesus Christ. The fundraising deadline for the Federal Elections Commission is March 31st. We will begin to see the results of that on April 15th. That is their actual deadline to file what you have raised up until March 31st. We're already booking our boy Dave Leventhal to come back so we can break down all those numbers. But I want to do my best right now as we are right before the deadline. By the way, this is the reason why if you're on any of these people's mailing lists, you're going to get a lot more emails and you're going to probably get more text messages because they need to raise money before this deadline. This deadline matters a lot because it's going to be the first time that we're going to see big numbers next to these people's names. This, before we even start, is partially part of the reason why I think Joe Biden hasn't entered the race. Because I don't think he wants people that have had months of fundraising lead time on him to show up with a bigger number than he has in his column. If he waits until after March 31st, then he will have more of a shot by the next fundraising reporting deadline. So let's go ahead and stake out where we're at right now. The two leaders in the clubhouse on self-reported 24-hour fundraising was coming up second, Bernie Sanders with 5.9 million. And then about a month later, Beto O'Rourke's first day total was 6.1 million. Now, I will say that coming out of this is kind of like a precursor to when we talk to Dave in a few weeks, that there's going to be two main stories that can come out of this. Number one, how good people did. And number two, how bad people did. So let's start with the good, with the good boys. The big story is going to be who raised more, Beto or Bernie. Bernie's got the lead, but Beto seems to be a little smart about how much jamokes like me focus on things like fundraising. Whoever's running Beto's campaign is pretty smart about manipulating the political media, and they know that this kind of story is catnip. So even though Bernie's got a head start, I'm going to predict that Beto is going to find a way to the top of this list. I think Beto's going to raise more than Bernie. Although, it'll be curious because they don't know what each other's raised. They might have some moles. There might be some espionage. But they don't know what each other's raised. But I'm still going to suspect that Beto will raise the most. That would be followed by Bernie at number 3. I'm going to put Kamala Harris, Bernie at 2, Kamala Harris at 3. Because I think if Kamala Harris comes in 3rd, then that's no news is good news for her. She's in the she's in the upper tier. No one's gonna say you're failing in fundraising. She's had the 3rd highest within 24-hour raise. So I kind of feel like she's going to be in third there. But here we go. These are the big ones. Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren. They have not had the best rollouts. They have seen themselves leapfrogged by Beto, somebody who has had far less time in the spotlight than both of them have. Has spent far less time laying out their carefully planned presidential run than both of them have. And by Kamala Harris, who had the exact kind of spotlight that they've had over the last year. I think that Booker will be in fourth, and I believe Elizabeth Warren will be sixth. If I were to predict the stories that will come out in 2 weeks, I will predict that Beto topping the list will be the number one story. And the what the fuck is wrong with Elizabeth Warren will be the second story. The why isn't she raising as much money? Everybody else, it doesn't matter. Gillibrand doesn't matter. Tulsi doesn't matter. Buttigieg doesn't matter. Yang doesn't matter. The fact that they're listed will be okay. And somebody might make a big deal about overperforming expectations. But in general, we're talking about the big boys here. And in that race, yeah, I think Beto's number one and Warren's pulling up the rear. Let's focus on something that happened just yesterday. I don't get it, man. I really, no matter what you think about the Green New Deal, I have no idea why they brought it to the Senate. It is a resolution that they brought to the Senate, and then the crafty turtle, Mitch McConnell, decided to make them vote on it yesterday, knowing that it would not pass, but kind of daring the Democratic Party to say, well, you know, a lot of you seem to be backing this. All the 2020 Democrats are backing the Green New Deal. Well, if you're backing it, then certainly if we brought it to a vote, you would vote for it, right? Well, the Democrats don't really want to vote on it. They kind of just really want it to be there so when a Democratic president comes in, then they want to enact it. And so Chuck Schumer now had a real tricky situation on his hands because he wanted to protest Mitch McConnell bringing a signature piece of progressive, it's not legislation yet, it would be a resolution, to the floor as a sham vote. So he wanted to keep everybody in line and vote present. And they did. Nobody broke ranks. Good for Chuck Schumer. But the Republicans certainly had a vote on it. I'm sorry. Correction. 4 Democrats did vote on it, did break ranks and not vote present, but they were all people that were voting no. They were not people who wanted to be shown in support of the Green New Deal. Notable among them, Joe Manchin in West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona. But the Republicans had their fun. Yes, indeed they did. We're going to play a few clips here of Mike Lee, the senator from Utah. This was a speech he made about the Green New Deal. He had some very interesting props. He took out a picture of Ronald Reagan. Well, he'll describe the picture.
This is, of course, a picture of former President Ronald Reagan naturally firing a machine gun while riding on the back of a dinosaur. You'll notice a couple of important features here. First of all, the rocket launcher strapped to President Reagan's back, and then the stirring, unmistakable patriotism of the Velociraptor holding up a tattered American flag, a symbol of all it means to be an American.
The reason why he showed such a ridiculous image was to project that this depiction of the final battle of the Cold War is about as relevant as the Green New Deal trying to end climate change. Oh, but Mike Lee wasn't done. He went on to say that the Green New Deal calls for a 10-year elimination, and by 10-year, I mean we have 10 years to eliminate airplanes. So what are we to do in an airplane-less society, and specifically for folks in Alaska? Well, he had a suggestion for a post-Green New Deal world.
Tauntauns, Mr. President. This is a beloved species of reptomammals, native to the ice planet of Hoth. Now, while perhaps not as efficient in some ways as airplanes or as snowmobiles, these hairy bipedal species of space lizards offer their own unique benefits. Not only are tauntauns carbon neutral, but according to a report a long time ago and issued far, far away, they may even be fully recyclable and usable for their warmth, especially on a cold night.
But what about Hawaii? What about Hawaii, Mike Lee asked. Well, it's going to take a long time to get from Hawaii to the mainland without an airplane. Well, the helpful senator from Utah had a suggestion there, too.
Is this. This is a picture of Aquaman, a superhero from the undersea kingdom of Atlantis, and notably here, a founding member of the Super Friends. I draw your attention, Mr. President, to the 20-foot impressive seahorse he's riding. Under the Green New Deal, this is probably Hawaii's best bet.
Mike Lee's a fucking troll. I mean, look, it was a vote that was there for Mitch McConnell to stunt on Cry and Chuck Schumer, and that's fine. Look, whatever. Mike Lee did a thing. Everybody voted president. We can all go ahead and move on, because you want to know what? It is time for the...
Wrong! 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 Wrong!
The parade of wrong opinions. Hey, you want to know what? Now that he's been cleared of all of his charges, Jussie Smollett has really silenced all of his critics. This is some shit I never thought that I would see in my life, and that is a conservative darling, Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, who came out livid at the fact that prosecutors decided to drop charges against Jussie Smollett. If you are unaware of this story, well, bless your heart, you have not had to pay attention to it. It's a fairly ridiculous story wherein a actor from the show Empire said that a hate crime was perpetrated against him. It was later found through investigation and text reports, as well as two eyewitness or co-conspirator complaints, that it had not happened. In fact, it was all planned by Mr. Smollett. Well, now the prosecutor who dropped the charges says that he also believes that the actor lied to the police, which is kind of why he was being charged in the first place. This from CNN. The prosecutor who dropped the charges said he still believes the actor lied to the police about the racist and homophobic attacks he allegedly staged in Chicago in January, In a surprise hearing Tuesday, Joe Magatz, the first assistant state attorney in Cook County, Illinois, announced the decision to drop the charges against Smollett. The stunning reversal 18 days after a grand jury indicted the Empire actor on felony disorderly conduct outraged the Chicago mayor and the police report. The decision to drop the charges does not mean the actor was innocent or any new evidence was presented, Magatz told the CNN affiliate WLS. Quote, "We believe he did what he was charged with doing. This is not an exoneration. To say he was exonerated by us or anyone else is not true." See, here's the problem, though, is that Smollett came out and in his first statements after the charges were dropped said that he had been consistent and had told the truth throughout this entire situation. This led to Rahm Emanuel, a former chief of staff for Barack Obama, to furiously say that this was a whitewashing of justice, asking if Jussie Smollett had no shame. I don't think this is the last that we've heard of this story, although I am officially now very, very interested in it. Because I have to wonder exactly who decided that it was really, really smart to let this guy off the hook. Hey, here's an opinion. It's really smart for a white man to lambaste white man's culture while running for president.
Wrong!
Oh, Joe, I can't wait until he's in the race. Can't wait till he's in the race. He says crazy stuff right to your face. He's Joe. AP report from New York. Former Vice President Joe Biden condemned a white man's culture as he lashed out at violence against women and more specifically lamented his role in the Supreme Court confirmation hearings that undermined Anita Hill's credibility nearly 3 decades ago. Biden, a Democratic presidential prospect who often highlights his white working class roots, said Hill, who is black, should not have been forced to face a panel of a bunch of white guys about her sexual harassment allegations against Clarence Thomas. To this day, I regret that I couldn't come up with a way to give her the kind of hearing she deserved, he said Tuesday night, echoing comments he delivered last fall. By the way, this is one of the issues that he's definitely going to have to get ahead of, which is why he's talking about it. Spoiler alert, it's not going to look good when people like Kamala Harris are bringing it up in front of his face on a debate stage. He went on, I wish I could have done something. Biden's role in the 1991 Thomas confirmation hearings is among the many political challenges he considers when making a 2020 bid for the presidency. Should he run, he would be among a handful of white men in a Democratic presidential field that features several women and minorities. His comments about Hill drew swift condemnation on social media, with many noting he was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time of the hearing. Quote, it literally does not matter what else Biden says about sexual assault if he cannot acknowledge his own culpability in putting a sexual assaulter on the Supreme Court and then pretending for years like he was powerless to stop it, tweeted Jessica Morales Roqueto, a former aide to Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, who now serves as the political director at the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And Mia Farrow called Biden's role in the 1991 hearings shameful. Love you, Joe, but you were in a position to do better, and you didn't. Biden called on Americans to change the culture that dates back centuries and allows pervasive violence against women. It's an English jurisprudential culture, a white man's culture. It's got to change. Would a white man's culture change if you elected a white man president?
Wrong!
All right, I got another opinion then. Michael Avenatti has the kind of moral courage that we need in the White House.
Wrong!
Oh!
Wrong!
Oh!
Wrong!
Oh no!
Wrong! Wrong!
Oh no! Michael, what happened? He was arrested on federal charges of wire abortion. Oh, the one-time recipient of the Politicsx New York Times Upshot Memorial, 97% likelihood to win the presidency of the United States. Oh, he went down, and he went down hard on Monday. In fact, for all the MAGA fans out there, they had no indictment on Friday, the Barr memo on Sunday, then Michael Avenatti and Mark Garagos getting tied up in a legal snafu on Monday. I swear to God, and this is what I wrote in the Free Political newsletter, that if on Tuesday Barack Obama came out and said he did Benghazi to deflect from the Clinton Foundation, I would have assumed, without a shadow of a doubt, that we were living in Barron Trump's AI. I just would have assumed he was programming it. Instead, we got Jussie Smollett. Combo breaker. Let's get back to Avenatti, though. Attorney Michael Avenatti, who came to national prominence as the lawyer for adult film star Stormy Daniels, was arrested on federal charges in two separate cases in California and New York, federal prosecutors announced Monday. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York charged Avenatti for allegedly trying to extort Nike out of $20 million. Prosecutor said he and another attorney threatened to release damaging information about the company if it did not meet his demands. That's what we like to call felony blackmail. The U.S. Attorney in Los Angeles separately announced Avenatti faces bank and wire fraud charges for allegedly embezzling money from a client and defrauding a bank through fake tax returns. Avenatti was arrested in New York and appeared in federal court Monday in Manhattan. He was released on a $300,000 personal recognizance bond and ordered to surrender his passport. He is also required to report any transactions of $5,000 or more to court, and his travel is restricted. He's scheduled to appear in court in California on April 1st, with preliminary hearings in New York set for April 25th. Oh. I got a bunch of people hit me up and said, oh, this is your boy Avenatti. This is your boy Avenatti. You said he was going to run for president. I did. Well, actually, he did. And then I agreed with him. And by the way, I'm here to tell you, I'm not sure he's still not. Oh, and I think he's going to win.
Wrong!
All right, here we go, folks. We have the most popular segment here on the Politics program. But first, before we get into the pole dance, we need to check out the line outside. Let's go ahead and take a look. These are all of the folks in this poll that did not clear 5%. We set the threshold at 5% here, so let's go ahead and take a look. There's a guy in an Affliction t-shirt and another guy in an Affliction t-shirt. Oh, there's Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, she's there. Okay, yeah. Oh, and there's Hickenlooper. There's Inslee. There's Castro. And oh, so close, Klobuchar. So close. She's right up at the front. She's right up at the front of the line, but unfortunately,
I don't see how you can hate from outside of the club. You can't even get in.
Come on in, though. Come on in. Come on in. Everybody else, come on in. Here we go. Oh, yeah. This is for the Iowa caucus. Folks, the only way that we do data science on this program, please welcome
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
Dance.
That booty.
This is an Emerson poll taken from March 21st to March 24th. Stepping up first to the stage with 5% of the vote, Oh, it's not quite the bump he wanted after announcing, but he's making the best of it. You might not even have to throw your money on stage because he's got plenty of it himself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get a big round of applause for Beto O'Rourke. With 6% of the vote, let's give a big pole dance welcome to the senator from New Jersey, the apple of Rosario's eye, Cory Booker. With 9% of the vote, let's hear it for Elizabeth Warren. With 10% of the vote, she is the senator from California. And I'll tell you what, based on her history, she might be the thing that smells like that dank up on stage. Folks, Kamala Harris. Wait a minute. This can't be right. Hold on, wait, I'm turning off the... Who let him in? Who let him in? I swear to God, last week he was outside the club. He was one of the haters outside the club that couldn't even get in. But in third? In third? Oh my God, I guess it checks out. I apologize. Please, making his official pole dance debut with 11% of the vote. He is Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I'm sorry, sir. Our apologies. And now our co-headliners with 24% of the vote, it is Bernie Sanders. And your headliner with 25% of the vote, it is Joe White Man's Culture Biden. That is O'Rourke 5, Booker 6, Warren 9, Harris 10, Buttigieg 11, Sanders 24, Biden 25. That is Joe Biden up with a 1-point spread. Man. That's a big number for booty check everywhere. That's huge. That's huge. Buttigieg is a fairly classic Iowa candidate. If he could keep this going, if he can stay strong in Iowa, that's the kind of stuff he needs. And also, that's kind of the place that Beto wanted to be. I almost look at that as more of a bad sign for Beto than it is a good sign for Buttigieg. Well, no. Actually, it's still a great sign for Buttigieg, but it's also a bad sign for Beto. Not to mention Harris, Warren, Booker. Biden and Sanders, that's going to be neck and neck the entire time. All right, let's go ahead and get into But Your can send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Again, that is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Diamond Scoop writes, new Young Brushwood ticket for 2020. It is the Gloria Young Bonnie Brushwood 2020 ticket. Make America motherly again. If you did not listen to our interview on Tuesday, I interviewed my mom for the $3 Club. It'll be the second time that you have heard from her breaking down her favorite 2020 candidates. But for everybody else, it'll be the first time. My mom, by the way, is a voter in Florida in a district that Democrats really need to do well in. Florida, big state, not only for Super Tuesday, but also for the general, of course. So we'll be monitoring my mom's thought. Steve writes, hey, Justin, I thought you might be interested in following this story about the current Prime Minister, Scott Morrison of Australia, shitting his pants in a McDonald's. I used to live in a town nearby, frequented this Macca's, and dated a girl from the suburb, but I had never heard this rumor. P.S. I like Mayor Pete, and I hope he does well in the debates. So obviously, I had to dig this up. I had to know what was going on here. So this is from a website called pedestrian.tv, and it is an investigation. Did Scott Morrison shit himself at a Engadine Macca's in 1997? An investigation. We quote pedestrian.tv. The internet might be full of filth and muck, but there's absolutely no denying it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And those of you who are fully plugged into the horrible Twitter website, one particularly pongy assertion has been circling the drain for days now. That Prime Minister Scott Morrison, in the hours after a Cronulla Sharks loss in 1997, wantonly and violently shit his pants at a Macca's. Ridiculous, perhaps at first, but after we begun pulling the thread, the shit became far runnier than we could have imagined. Being the responsible media outlet that we are, we investigated. Like with any other widespread allegation/cheeks, it's important to zero in on the central dot, in this case, the origin of the story. On August 24th of last year, Scott Morrison became the Prime Minister of Australia, following a bitter Liberal Party spill. That same afternoon, Sydney-based hip-hop artist Joyride broke wind on the Dak shatting yarn. Here's the original tweet. Scott Morrison shat himself at an Engadine McDonald's after the Sharks lost the GF in 97. This, by all accounts, appears to be the first appearance of the rumor on social media. The rumor that Scott Morrison absolutely loaded his pants up at an Engadine Macca's after Cronulla lost the grand final in 97. At the time, Joyride provided further detail that amounted to shit allegedly funneled by Morrison into his own pants was large, and that the story had been verified by an unnamed friend who worked there. Joyride tweeted to somebody asking for details, "Pretty bad, I heard. My mate was working there at the time." The story subsequently passed into oblivion, wafting into the breeze, much like anything else posted on Twitter. However, over the past handful of days, for reasons we can't fully explain, it has resurfaced. Ever since Morrison's poorly received interview with Wahid Ali on The Project, that rumor that he shitted himself at an Engadine Macca's in 1997 has floated back to the surface, but this time it caught fire. Google Trends data shows a huge and sustained spike in searches for the term Engadine Macca's from March 21st onward. And then he goes on to just find all of the different pieces of evidence. Please, I'll go ahead and tweet this because it is among my favorite things that I've read this week. And I need all of my Aussies that listen to this show, please tell me how to pronounce Engadine. Here's a few emails we got on the rumor that Biden would pick Stacey Abrams as his vice president out of the box. Morgan wrote, I live in Woodstock, Georgia, 30 minutes north of downtown. And as you'll recall, in the race between Kemp and Abrams, it was crazy tight. Abrams was also a sore loser, if you ask me. It took her several days before she conceded. She has had a lot of support here in the Atlanta metro area, and, like Biden, she seems very personable. I think she'd be a great pick for Biden's VP. If it helps, I'm Republican and voted for Kemp in 2018 for Georgia governor. It was my first election, which I'm old enough to vote in. James wrote, I'm no political strategist, but I can come up with a good reason why Biden would want an early VP. 2 candidates means twice as many people campaigning. Biden's old and probably can't push as hard as the young guns. You mean like his other co-leader, Bernie Sanders, who's 77? I continue. Also, do you remember how much Michelle Obama did campaigning for her husband, especially in the primary? Having a popular, smart black woman campaigning for you from the Bell could be a good advantage. You already covered some of the negatives. If it helps, I'm a middle-aged white male. James, I agree with you. I just don't think that she couldn't do that as a super surrogate. Endorse Biden right out of the gate, have it be assumed that maybe she would be the vice president, and then let her out there. Get her going a little bit. Like, what if you name her vice president and then she immediately shits her pants at an Engadine Macca's? That would be bad. You would wish that you hadn't done it. Anonymous Diamond writes, word of the day, cognitive dissonance. Technically 2 words. All of it. The most pathetic political charade in the long history of governance. I load up Twitter to see what the mood is, and it's anger, delusion, mass hysteria, swearing there are more investigations coming. Mueller was essentially tainted, and it's only the beginning. I don't know if I can believe that Americans, who I believe are just like me, outside of the really cult-like hyper-left people, can have any stomach left whatever for this charade to continue. I truly believe that they have tired out of the populace with this investigation. They are suffering. All of our mental health grows worse with the propagation of more and more investigations. It will crash the Dems' entire platform. And finally, should they pursue more obsessive charges against Trump and his family? Democrats are now literally and figuratively an obstructionist party of political fantasy that exists solely for entertainment purposes. Well, Anonymous Diamond, I don't fully agree with you. I do think that there's always room for legitimate stuff, but I will say, as I will repeat from earlier in the podcast, that I believe that, look, if it ain't up to a certain level, focus on issues that are winning for you. Healthcare wins. Focus on healthcare. You're going to be better off beating them in 2020. There's no more magic bullet. Also, one final note. There was an article that got a lot of traction over the weekend, written by Matt Taibbi, a columnist that I've long followed, saying that the Mueller report is the WMDs of a new generation. Now, he's a provocative writer. That's a provocative column. It's kind of what he does. I really only wanted to bring up Matt Taibbi to remind everybody that at one point in his young career as an activist in Russia, he hit a politician in the face with a cream pie filled with horse cum. Politics. But remember, folks, take politics seriously. You can email this show, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Music has been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. Follow me at Justin R. Young on Instagram and Twitter. Folks, takepoliticsseriously.com. Get on board, baby. We got a bunch of really good interviews coming up, too. That about wraps it up. My name is Justin Robert Young. I want to remind you that some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. And there was another one that talked about politics last week. But this right here, this is the only one that talks about all 3. Till next week, friends.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Do you think the guy knew it was horse cum because he tasted it?